Well, hello, rat enthusiasts. I'm RidersDX, and welcome to my channel. Today, I thought it'd be nice to talk about Epic Mickey Rebrushed because I feel like we haven't talked about the game in a hot minute, to be honest. And I would apologize for it, but in all honesty, like nothing has happened since the GameSpot impression. So unfortunately, there just hasn't been much to talk about. I mean, I am still playing through the game. I'm almost at the end. I think I'm at like Lonesome Manor right now, so I'm literally just about to get to like the very last part of the game at this point. So I'm looking forward to finally finishing it and finally talking about it. Like, I don't know what's taking me so long, honestly. So we'll definitely push through that. But I'm curious as to how you all been. How have you been since the Epic Mickey Rebrushed review? Have you thought more about the game at this point? Have you kind of moved on to other things? I'm really curious to hear what's been going on in your life and such. For me personally, there's a lot of other things going on, so it's been kind of nice to help, tide the way until whenever we get like new Epic Mickey Rebrushed content. I mean, just yesterday, Taylor Swift detonated like an atomic bomb and gave us like a revamped Eras Tour set list with Torture Poets Department, and I am just like, is a $3,000 ticket behind the screen worth it? And will I look at myself in the same way if I buy that ticket? This is why I need Epic Mickey Rebrushed news right now. Like, please get these conversations out of my head. So, well, I thought it'd be a really cool idea to talk about what we could see from the Epic Mickey franchise after Epic Mickey Rebrushed, because this franchise has a lot of support behind it. I've come to discover, from covering the game. And there's actually been a lot of talks of like a lot of unreleased or like planned games that just never came to fruition. So I thought I would take a quick little minute today to talk about like what I think is going to come after Epic Mickey Rebrushed. But before we get into that, if you like Epic Mickey Rebrushed and you want to stay up to date on the game, then feel free to subscribe to my channel below, because as soon as we get something, I'll definitely talk about it and I'll definitely let you know everything there is to know about it. But until then, if y'all have any ideas as to what kind of videos I could make about Epic Mickey, then let me know in the comment section below, because yeah, I am looking for ideas. I would love to find ways to keep this conversation going. But today's topic is what is coming for Epic Mickey after Rebrushed comes out. Because, with a remake, there's always this huge opportunity to sort of like revive or revamp a franchise, afterwards. Because once you have a remake come out, it's probably gonna be a little successful, and then you have a lot more eyes on the franchise than you would have beforehand if it weren't for the remake. And so it's a perfect opportunity to sort of like reboot things and start from square one and sort of like hopefully give the franchise a second life of its own. With Epic Mickey Rebrushed, there are two general ways we can go about doing it. And the first way that I want to talk about is definitely the one I've seen a lot more support for within the Epic Mickey community, at least. And that is for a full-on remake of Epic Mickey 2. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know nearly as much about the second game as the first game. The only thing I really know is that you can play as Oswald in it, and I guess it has like co-op play with it. But other than that, I know absolutely nothing about the game. So I'm looking forward to trying out Epic Mickey 2 once I get through Epic Mickey 1, which will be soon. I mean, I gotta give myself like a timeline here. I just gotta like play it every single day. This is the trouble of being someone that has a full-time job and also makes YouTube videos like every week. Like, you don't have a lot of time to play games, which is the most ironic part about making a video gaming focused YouTube channel. Let me stop ranting. But Epic Mickey 2 is the most logical step to remake once you finish Epic Mickey 1. And I think for a lot of people, we like things kind of like fitting nicely together. And it just feels very odd to have a remake of Epic Mickey 1, but not Epic Mickey 2. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't feel right. And while I think that it's a game that definitely could use a remake, because I have heard that like it's not as good as the first one, and perhaps they could do some things to the second one to make it more like the first one, or at least make it a better game overall. But I actually don't think that an Epic Mickey 2 remake is going to happen, and here is why I'm thinking that. If we're going to talk about what THQ Nordic does specifically, then we know exactly what they've done in this kind of situation before, and that is why we're going to go back to SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, my favorite topic of all time. So Rehydrated was a huge success. I think it sold like 2 million copies at this point, which is like fantastic, especially for a remake of a licensed game. Like, you don't see that happen every single day. And so the most logical step that they probably could have gone with was actually going to remake the next game that would have kind of fallen very closely to Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, which was the movie game. And so the movie game has a fan base of its own, and it's definitely a game that I think if they did remake it, actually would do pretty well. Like if they promoted it very closely to Rehydrated's release, for instance, then I think the movie game would have done sufficiently well as well, especially if you think about the fact that the 20th anniversary is sometime soon. I think it's this year or maybe next year, who knows? And so the remake could have really fallen in line directly with that anniversary. But instead, THQ Nordic decided to greenlit a brand new SpongeBob game instead, and that was Cosmic Shake. And I'm thinking that like the reason that they did this is because, you know, remakes are not like a given thing. You know, only a certain kind of game can really get remade, at least in the eyes of a publisher. And for that to be remade, there needs to be sufficient evidence that it's going to do very well financially and that people are looking for it. And so people are looking for a remake of every game if you think about it. Like every single game that's out there right now has at least one person that wants a remake of it. Of course, there's certain games that have more people wanting remakes than others, but there are some games that are just undeniable in terms of like how many people want a remake. Like Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, that was an obvious choice. People love that game, and speedrunning was keeping that game alive to this very day. The Simpsons Hit and Run is another example that I think is a clear-cut example of a remake that has to happen. Hasn't happened for some reason, but I mean, who are we to judge, I guess. And Epic Mickey is a game that I actually think was kind of less obvious, but it does have a bit of a cult following now that I've looked more into it. And so that is another example of a game that makes a lot of sense for the remake treatment. But oftentimes, like the direct successor of these games are not nearly as popular and just won't receive as much support were a remake to happen. And unfortunately, I think Epic Mickey 2 kind of falls into that trap, unfortunately. The only other way I could have seen them done it is if they would have gone for like a Crash or Spyro strategy and actually made both games at the same time into one package. But I think Epic Mickey is a sizable game of its own that it really didn't need that. Like if it was like a PS1 game, I could have seen them doing something like that maybe, but it was a Wii title. So it's definitely a game that still has sufficient content for a game as a standalone title. Not to say that Epic Mickey 2 Rebrushed won't happen, I just don't see it as likely of a thing to happen, unfortunately, just based off of what THQ Nordic has done. Of course, they can totally shake things up and give us an Epic Mickey 2, but if they give us Epic Mickey 2 Rebrushed, then I'm like, why don't we have a movie game Rebrush or Rehydrated, or you know what? Too many re-terms in the room here. We gotta... But that being said, the more likely thing that I see happening here is actually a brand new Epic Mickey game, which in my opinion actually is a more exciting option, because Epic Mickey was a franchise that we thought was dead, basically. Like, I think that studio that developed the games got closed down, and then there just wasn't like any sign of life until like the Rebrush game was announced. And so I think a brand new Epic Mickey game developed by Purple Lamp Studios is fully possible, especially since we got Cosmic Shake. So THQ Nordic would definitely see the benefit of a brand new Epic Mickey game if Rebrush does well, which I have a feeling it's going to do well. You know, it definitely is a nostalgic title, and I definitely see people lining up to buy it. So once we know for sure that Epic Mickey Rebrush is a home run success, then I think a brand new game is very much possible. I also think that a brand new game is possible because it seems like the original developers or original people behind the Epic Mickey game are like really invested in the game and want to see it happen, and would probably join on a development team if they could. Like, I believe Warren Spector is actually being like consulted for this game quite extensively, at least according to the initial press release that came out when the game got announced. And so if they wanted to make a brand new Epic Mickey game, it's very clear to me that Warren Spector would very much want to be a part of it, especially because I did read somewhere that Epic Mickey was supposed to be a trilogy and that they were going to make an Epic Mickey 3, but of course because of the studio closure, it just didn't happen. Actually, this franchise has so many like other games that were planned for it. Like, I'm reading all this stuff about like a kart racing game, for instance, or like I saw something about like an Epic Dino thing the other day. So I mean, clearly this franchise has a lot of ideas that they want to be explored. And so it just seems like there's a lot more of a reservoir for brand new ideas compared to like a remake of the second game. So that's what I think is the most likely thing to happen. By the way, if you want videos on like all those things I just mentioned, by the way, like the kart racing game, Epic Download, or like other like information about like other unreleased or planned Epic Mickey games, then let me know, because it's definitely something I've been wanting to look into. I just haven't had the chance yet. So I would love to have an excuse to look into it if that's something you're interested in. But yeah, overall, I think a brand new Epic Mickey game would be a lot more likely. And I also think it would be the better option because just judging based off of what I know about Epic Mickey 2 so far, I don't personally see it being worthwhile in terms of a remake. Then again, I could play the game and to completely change our mind and think like, wow, this game deserves a remake. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, especially if you're like an OG Epic Mickey fan. Let me know if you would rather see a remake of the second game or if you want to see a brand new game instead. Maybe we'll finally get Epic Mickey 3 and we can conclude whatever this trilogy was supposed to be. Man, that's exciting just to think about it. But at the end of the day, I do hope that there's more Epic Mickey news coming. Like, we need it so bad, guys. We need it really, really bad. But alright, y'all. Thank you so much. This is Riders, riding out.